Hello, how are you doing? Today, I would like to talk about something that is close to my heart, or rather, close to my mouth. But before I begin, I would like to say thank you to those that watched my video, my previous video that was shared on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I know lah, I kiasu I want my video to go out everywhere. Yeah. So whether you watch 1 minute of it or you watch 15 minutes of it or you watch the full 30 minutes, 33 minutes, thank you. Um, so I was told to keep my video shorter. Yeah. So I will try to keep this video shorter. It should be lah, lesser than half an hour, definitely. So what I would like to say is that yeah. Also, what I'm about to share, for those people who are familiar with me, you might think that, is Ivan talking about himself? I would say yes lah. Yes, I am. Maybe I'm referring to myself in certain scenarios that I will be describing. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. Yeah. So the topic I would like to talk about today is talking. Um, Talking is something that everybody has done, right? Because we are all social beings, so we have talked, we have chatted to another person at some point of our life. But the point that I want to bring up is that contrary to popular belief, that talking is something that you know um, like for example, if you are a guy, you don't talk so much, you do more, or like being chatty is normally associated with either if you are old or you are like an auntie, then you tend to talk more. But then based on my own experience and my own personality, I would say no lah. I would say that regardless of age or gender, there are people out there who like to talk. And if you watch my previous video, 33 minutes long, I think it's very obvious, that I also like to talk. Yeah. In fact, back in my school days, I also remember that I actually turned what was meant to be a 15-minute presentation into almost what was a 30-minute lecture. Given feedback by my lecturer that, wow, how come you turn this into a lecture? Yeah. So I think like that, then you know that I just love to talk lah. Yeah. So as I was saying, I feel that regardless of age or gender, there are people out there who would like to talk. And sometimes the issue occurs where sometimes a person talks, and if it's new, if there's new input, it's okay. Like you just if you're talking to another person, the person will probably sit down and listen to you. But what happens if the input is not new, and the person that you're talking to always repeats the same thing over and over and over? Yeah. So then what would you do then? you know um, Me personally, as a person who for a while, you know um, if you watch my previous video, you know that, like for example, in circuit breaker, which I talked about, there was a time that I didn't really have anything to do. So when I talk to people, I would always only talk about the stuff that had been talked about before, because at that point where I shared the thing previously, those things were fresh, those things were new, and since there was no input from me, so even if there was a new meeting, then the input is still the previous one. So so what I'm trying to say is that I feel that that there are people who are like that. I don't think it's just me lah. And yeah so yeah then also, so the thing is that um you know when you talk, right, or for in my case when I talk, right, not only is sometimes there's a tendency for no input, right? So you see, talking to me is a way that you relate to people, right? But then the problem, like I say, the problem arises where because there's no new input, so the person that you talk to will only listen to what has been talked before, and then eventually you get bored, right? But the thing is that if you think about it this way, like you hear stories of like old people, like our grandparents or our parents, they meet, then they will always share the same thing over and over. But then that's their way of relating to us, because if there is nothing to say, then there's nothing to relate, then eventually we'll stop talking, right? So you know so what I'm trying to say is that for 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 situations like this, right, I would just ask that, if there's anyone in your community who is like that, um, just be a bit more gracious to them lah. uh, um, when talking to them, put try to suggest new things to them, and don't suggest generic things like pick up a skill, or uh, tell them go and find something to do, but rather suggest something concrete to them, or suggest a task to them that they can actually do. Like for example, I mentioned in my previous video, a circuit breaker video, that a cell member of mine suggested that I would do a Google search, right? So that was something concrete, rather than somebody telling me, oh, go pick up a skill or go take up a course, so something like that. If you want to make a suggestion to someone, to receive new input, then I suggest that you suggest something concrete, rather than generalizing it. And also, I know this is going to sound a bit ironic, especially for, like I say, for people who know me, right? So, because if the Chinese say, the Chinese words are what 过来人 or something, right? You know, when I was in school, I also went to see the school counselor, and when I went to see the school counselor, there will be times where I'll be sharing and sharing and sharing things. And then sometimes when I first started, right, then it could go for as long as 2 hours, and I'll be talking all over the place. So I remember that there was one day, what happened was that I decided, right, that I would create a structure for myself. I would force myself to have that structure. So so what would happen would be that when I'm talking to somebody, I would frame in my mind, okay, I want to talk about this, and this. Then when you start talking, you go point one in your head lah. In your head you go point one, point two, point three, point four. Then when you're finished, then sometimes the conversation can close. Sometimes you have to put it explicitly that like for example, in my first video, when I talk for the 30 over minutes, right, then I say, oh, I run out, got nothing to say already. So that is something very explicit, like very obvious, that okay, I really got nothing to say. Yeah. So so that worked for me. Of course, one thing I realized is also that there are two ways of looking at this. One is you would use the structural manner more obviously, I would say. I can't think of it, but the structural manner in your head is more obvious when you are talking to people that you're not so close to. Whereas if you're talking to someone that you're closer to, that you can, do small talk, right? Then sometimes when you get so engaged in the conversation, both people, then the structure just slowly just goes away, you know. So so like for example, even don't say talking, even for the video, even for this video, uh, after I finish recording on Friday, this is being recorded on a Wednesday, by the way, even though by the time the video comes out, it'll be on a Friday. Yeah. So like after I finish recording the video, the circuit breaker video on Friday, then immediately my mind just kept spinning and thinking. So after that, then I had to create a structure like, what do I, how will I talk about it? And it's the same when I go and talk to another person as well. I have a structure. I think of this. Then after that, when I finish this, I go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one. And of course, like I say, the best part is if you know somebody so well and the person maybe knows you so well that sometimes in the point of your conversation, the structure just melts away. I think that's the best kind of conversation because that means that anything can be said under the sun. But to me, unfortunately, I feel that this kind of conversations for me not easy to come by. Yeah. So yeah, and then also you know as I mentioned previously, for anyone who's watching out there who happens to know somebody or you are somebody who is like that, or who talks, the way that I just mentioned, if you have somebody in your community who is like that, be a bit more gracious, and if you are somebody uh, who talks like that, then perhaps you want to try my way of structuring your thoughts. Like I talk about this, then I go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one, and then eventually when you finish training yourself, it may come to a point that the structure is not needed anymore. At this point, for me personally, I still have to use that structure sometimes, especially if I'm like talking to people I'm not closer to or talking about formal things. Then I have to use the structure. I talk about this. Then after that, sometimes I'll make it very obvious, like, okay, maybe I won't say like, I have nothing to talk about. Rather, I would say like, this time frame has passed already. I think we should end our conversation. That kind of thing. Or maybe some form of body language, like if you are sitting to face somebody, then you want to like maybe make some movement to say, okay, it's time to end, it's time to go. So that kind of thing. So yeah, that works for me. I don't know whether it'll work for you, but it works for me lah. you know uh you know um One last thing I would like to add is that some for people who like to talk a lot, right? My personal experience is that sometimes you talk a lot and talk too much, and then that loses you friends, which I will that one I will cover in another video. But that's why for those people that are around you, right, keep them close to you. And for those people who have someone in a community like that, right, don't drop them lah. Okay. Be close to them to remind them that, hey, you've thought about this before, perhaps you want to look for something else and look for something new to talk about. And eventually, after all the reminders, right, then slowly there will be a shift lah. I believe that there will be a shift, like there was for me as well. There will be a shift, and then eventually, yeah, eventually you just build up a confidence and a kind of conversation that is that doesn't regurgitate itself anymore. You will have fresh new conversations. Yeah. So so that That's what I would like to close with. Thank you for watching and see you again soon.